Can Max Verstappen break the first round win curse? Another disappointing year ahead for McLaren? Can Alonso and Aston Martin win the 2023 championship? Let's find out. This is the F1 Debrief. Hello and welcome to potentially what will be the first and only episode of the F1 Debrief. Of course, the Formula One circus began their 23-race-long season at Bahrain last night, and there are definitely a lot of questions to ponder over from it. Now, similar to my Let's Talk Supercar series that I'm doing this year, I'll be reviewing the race weekends and maybe potentially discuss some news if anyone is interested in it. I'm not sure whether I'll continue this or not. Consider this a one-off unless you guys want to see it. So basically how these reviews are going to work is I'll run through the race results, give a quick performance review with every driver, and work from there. So without further ado, let's get straight into it, starting off with the race winner. So starting off, P1, Max Verstappen. He started in pole after an amazing lap in qualifying. It was the perfect weekend for Red Bull. Maximum points. It's a 1-2. The first 1-2 they've had since Abu Dhabi in 2013. Verstappen led from the beginning. He did suffer some rear locking when it came to downshifting. However, it had very little effect on his road to victory. It's also Max Verstappen's first win in Bahrain, which also adds his race win tally to 36 in total in Formula One. And this is an interesting thing to look at. The last 6 races, 6 years, we have seen the first winner of the season finishing second in the championship. So I wonder if Max Verstappen can actually break that curse this year, or Charles Leclerc might even. Who knows? But obviously, P2, Sergio Perez, as I said, first Red Bull 1-2 for a while, and he just kept it clean out of trouble. You know, he did his job and finished second behind Verstappen. So solid weekend for Red Bull for sure. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, P3, Fernando Alonso. After starting 5th, he drove incredibly well all race. He had a bit of a trouble start. He dropped down to 7th after his teammate, Lance Stroll, almost driving into the back of him at turn 4. Luckily got away with no damage whatsoever, both of them, thankfully. He had a great battle with Mercedes, which is who they were mainly racing against this weekend. I've got to say, the Aston Martin definitely looks strong, and it looked very good in testing. Obviously, they've got the Mercedes engine, but they have got inspiration in terms of their aero kit. They've got inspiration from Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes combined, as well as using their own brand new ideas. Of course, they've also got a brand new factory as well, so they've got a big year ahead, and I can't wait to see what they do this year. Now, do I think Alonso will be a championship contender? Do I think he'll win the 23 title? No, I don't. I actually don't think so. And you're probably wondering, like, why did you put that in the title if you're watching on YouTube? It is so you can click on this and check it out. You just got clickbaited. But seriously though, I do think they're a top 3 car this year. Probably not this year, but if they keep up with what they're doing, maybe next year or the year after, they'll definitely probably end up being a championship contender. However, I don't think anyone will beat Red Bull this year personally. Hopefully I'm surprised. But we do have a long race ahead, 22 races to go, so anything can happen. But it is quite troubling with the 2 Red Bulls having such a massive gap from the other guys. I believe it was like a 50-second gap between Max and Alonso. So I think we're about to see the dawn of the Red Bull domination, as we saw with Mercedes and then Red Bull back in the day. Alonso had there was some cracking overtakes, especially on Hamilton. He went, I think turn 10 is where he got him. And then Carlos Sainz, I don't think he made contact, but it did look like he did at turn 4. But yeah, brilliant result from Alonso. Really happy to see him back up the front again and fighting as a front runner. Position 4, Carlos Sainz started 4th. Bit of a quiet weekend. Bit of a quiet race for him today. He struggled a lot with tyre deg. I think as Charles Leclerc did as well. By the end of it, he basically had no pace whatsoever. He did say to the radio, if he was to push, he wouldn't have made it home on the set of softs that he had. I'm pretty sure they were softs. I could be wrong, but he still managed to stay ahead of Hamilton in P5. But we'll get to him in just a moment. But disappointing race for Ferrari overall, with Leclerc retiring during the race. We'll get into that when we get to him. As I said, P5, Lewis Hamilton started 7th. He apparently struggled during the race. He just, I don't know, just is not comfortable with the car. They're having a lot of issues still. They're a bit better than last year in terms of they're not breaking their back every time they drive, but they've still got a lot of work to do. I believe they have a different design for their car, ready to go pretty much. So it's just a matter of getting it sorted, and also because of the cost cap, they've really got to hope if they do go ahead with this design. They better hope, it works out. Otherwise, they're going to be in deep shit later on. Lance Strong, excuse me. I mean, he was pretty strong, I've got to admit. But Lance Stroll, P6, after starting 8th, which is still an amazing grid position. And he drove really, really well, considering he had 2 broken wrists, I think 2, and broken toe. And he had surgery 12 days ago, which is mega to think, considering he finished 6th. So an amazing weekend for Aston Martin. I didn't think they would do this well. I knew they were going to be up there after testing, but I didn't think to get a podium straight off the bat and then a P6. It's pretty cool to see, and I can't wait to see how they go this year. But it also shows how good the car is too. So the fact that Mercedes, the team itself, was beaten by a team that they supply their engines to is really concerning for Mercedes, and it shows that their car design is just awful in comparison to what Aston Martin's done. They've obviously done their homework. They've learnt from the teams they've raced against. They've seen how good Red Bull is. They've seen how good Ferrari is when they can. So they've obviously, they've done their homework, and I feel like Mercedes need to do a bit more of that. But so amazing result for Aston Martin. They should all be pleased. I definitely am. P7 was George Russell. Bit of a okay weekend for him. He had a solid weekend. P8, Valtteri Bottas. It's a great result for him and Alfa Romeo. He started 9th. He only moved up 1. He did have a few battles with George Russell, I saw, fighting the one that replaced him, technically. And in my opinion, he is technically an Aussie. So it's good to see an Aussie in P8. P9, Pierre Gasly. It's a brilliant debut drive for Alpine. After starting at the back of the grid, he managed to climb his way all the way to 9th, which is amazing. He should be pleased with that. Of course, it's his first time, his first race for a non-Red Bull team. Of course, he was part of Toro Rosso, then became Red Bull, then got demoted to AlphaTauri. But now he's moved to a whole new team and has done well this weekend. Another person that's done really well is Alex Albon in the Williams in P10, being able to score points for Williams, especially after starting 15th. He did make up some good places. The car did look quite nice. It looked like it had speed, I've got to admit. It's great to see Williams back up in the 10, especially this early on in the season, and I can't wait to see how they go throughout the year. P11, Yuki Tsunoda, Pierre Gasly's ex-teammate, finished in 11th after starting 14th. P12, our first rookie of the field, Logan Sargent, after starting 16th, he managed to climb his way to 12th. Solid debut. Solid first Grand Prix, as I just said. He kept out of trouble and brought it home well, which is what you want for a first Grand Prix. And like I said before, decent weekend for Williams. Lots of positives, and the car does look quite pacey. P13, Kevin Magnussen. It was quite an average weekend for Haas. Average race, for Haas. He started 17th. He had a shocking qualifying, and he just couldn't deliver in the race, especially compared to last year where he managed to get a top 5, I think. Can't remember. But definitely didn't get to do it this time around. Position 14, Nick De Vries, the second rookie of the field. After starting 19th, he managed to finish 14th. It's an okay debut. I wouldn't say a debut because he obviously he filled in at Monza last year and was able to score points. So technically, it wasn't even a great race for him. Technically, if you're looking from that perspective, but he did drive pretty well, in my opinion. You didn't see much of him, I got to admit. He still brought it home in one piece, which is what you want. But however, the car doesn't look strong enough yet to be competing properly yet. But it at least finished, unlike some. I'm hinting at you, McLaren, but we'll get into that. P15, Nico Hülkenberg, after having a great qualifying in his return to Grand Prix racing, he started 10th. But however, he wasn't able to replicate that result in the race. He had quite an average race, to be honest. There was numerous times where he suffered damage to his front wing. Had to get that sorted. But however, he ended up receiving a time penalty for track limit across the race. But he was not the only one to receive a penalty. We'll get into that in a moment. But an average weekend for Haas. And because normally we're used to seeing Haas doing really well at season openers. So it's a bit disappointing to see them not do well at all this week. But who knows? See how they go in Jeddah. But they've got a lot of work to do in the next couple of weeks. P16, Zhou Guanyu. I am so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I am horrible with pronunciations. But anyway, he started 13th. He managed to get the fastest lap at the end of the race, I believe. He had a decent race. Solid finish for him. However, obviously, didn't finish ahead of where he started, but at least he finished. P17, the last of the finishers. I don't really want to say this, but Lando Norris. A very disappointing weekend for McLaren. Very disappointing season starter for McLaren. After starting 11th, Norris unfortunately had to pit 6 times due to a pneumatic leak. Very disappointing start of the season, and in my opinion, I think I am a bit worried for Norris and his future. I reckon if I was him, I would start considering looking around for different drives, because I don't know how. I know he signed up for a long-term contract, but I don't know how long he can keep putting this up, because it is affecting his career. The older he gets, the more challenging it will get to win, and unfortunately he's seeing all his friends that he grew up with and raced against winning, And he just can't compete against him. And we did see, actually, in saying that though, we did see him have a good, decent. He had the McLaren caught up with the Mercedes quite a bit. However, he was a lap down, which is very disappointing. But it's good to see them. They're fast, but not fast enough or reliable, and they just haven't got their head together. They just need to do their homework and get their asses into gear. And now we are left with 3 DNFs, starting with Esteban Ocon in P18 after starting 9th. He just had a shocking race. This is one to forget for him. He started off, it just is a horrible race. Started off when he received a time penalty for parking his car wrongly in the grid box at the start. He was a little bit too far forward. And then when he went to serve the penalty, I believe they started working on the car before the allocated time was up, which resulted in another penalty. And then after that, he got another penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Like, that's just one to forget. And I believe he's on par with Maldonado for the amount of penalties in a race a driver has gotten. But luckily, he was at least put out of his misery when they retired the car with 16 laps to go. So, just unfortunate result, especially when his teammate managed to finish in the points. So one to definitely forget for him. Another one to forget, P19, and I really hate to say this, Charles Leclerc. After starting 3rd on the grid, he did look really fast, but I had a horrible feeling in my gut that something bad will happen with the Ferrari, and that was the case. After sitting in 3rd pretty much the whole race on lap 40 to 47, around there, that mark, he retired due to a engine issue. And if it wasn't for that, he was going to be on the podium. But I am very conflicted by this, because despite, he would have finished 3rd, but because he retired, that promoted Alonso the chance to get 3rd. So I'm happy with that, but I'm sad at the same time. I'm conflicted. But Ferrari have a lot of homework to do, as do other teams. But it is a long season ahead. There is 22 races to go, like I have mentioned. And we've got to factor in, both Red Bulls retired at the season opener at Bahrain last year, and they won the title. So who knows what can happen. Maybe Charles might be able to win this year. Like I said before with the curse, no one since Nico Rosberg has won the first Grand Prix and gone to win the championship. They've always finished runner-up or something. So maybe this is Leclerc's sign that... Maybe it's a sign that Leclerc and Ferrari will win once again. I hope. Let's just keep optimistic about that. And last but not least, our first retirement of the night, Oscar Piastri, our 3rd rookie in the field. After starting 18th, it was an unfortunate and very short start to his F1 debut. He had a decent start. He stayed out of trouble. And he also made a couple moves too, which is great to see. Kept the car nice and clean. But unfortunately, he ultimately had to retire due to an electrical issue, which they thought originally had something to do with the steering wheel. So he went to go pit, I think, on the 15th or so lap. However, once he got there, the engine just shit itself, and that was it. But very disappointing. And I got to feel for him. I have to feel for him. The car is a bit terrible at the moment. And he drove really well. As long as this doesn't destroy his confidence, he will hopefully get another run again, if the car actually decides to run for Jeddah. Because with the car behind him, I reckon he can do very well. But unfortunately, the car he's got at the moment is a shitbox, and it is potentially probably the worst car on the grid for now. So let's think about this for a minute. McLaren should be fighting for 4th or 3rd in the championship. However, they're currently dead last at the moment. Williams and Haas are beating them. Now, I'm not dissing Williams and Haas and their drivers. They're all doing a good job, especially Williams at the moment. But McLaren should be with Ferrari, should be with Mercedes and Red Bull. So they have so much heritage and history and so many championship wins, and they've just gone to this, and it's just disappointing to see. And I really hope they can get whatever's going wrong sorted real soon before they lose a very talented driver in the hands of Lando Norris, because he does have a lot of potential, and unfortunately that's just being wasted on a car that doesn't even work properly. So that's a little rant, but hopefully McLaren can get their asses into gear and get shit done like I mentioned before. So let's have a look at the constructors standings real quick. So Red Bull are on the top of the leaderboard with maximum points, followed by Aston Martin, which is cool to see them second on the leaderboard. I know it's round one and all, but it's cool to see Aston Martin in the mix. Third is Mercedes. Ferrari in fourth with Carlos Sainz only finishing. Fifth is Alfa Romeo. Sixth is Alpine. 7 Williams. 8th is AlphaTauri. 9th is Haas. And 10 is the unfortunate McLaren. And in my opinion, the driver of the day, I was conflicted whether to give it to Gasly or Alonso, but I'm just going to give it to Alonso. He put on an incredible show for everyone back at home today, and it gets me so excited and pumped for this year, and I can't wait to see how what he does this year, especially with the Red Bulls and whatnot. So I'm hoping he'll get a win. I can't wait for when he does. It's going to be mega and an exciting year ahead. So speaking of ahead, in a few weeks' time, the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix is on at Jeddah, and here are my top 5 is my predictions for the top 5 for the race. So P1, I reckon Verstappen's just going to win it again. He's been very dominant this last few races. He won, I think, 13 or 15 races last year. He's continuing that run this year by dominating the first round, and I reckon he'll do it again this next one coming. I reckon Charles Leclerc will get a second place finish next week, next fortnight, next Grand Prix. Bloody my God, I'm sorry. I just got excited over the fact that Charles Leclerc might finish P2. But don't get your hopes up, it's a Ferrari. But also get your hopes up because it's a Ferrari, because usually they work if it's done well. P3 is probably Sergio Perez, and then fourth, I reckon, George Russell. He was quite pacey in the Mercedes this weekend, and he didn't struggle as much as Hamilton. So I wonder how he'll go next race, but I reckon he'll finish fourth. And then fifth, I reckon Fernando Alonso. So that's been the Bahrain Grand Prix review, debrief, whatever you want to call it. If you did enjoy it, hit the follow button on Spotify, hit the subscribe on YouTube, like it, do all that stuff. Let me know if you want me to continue this throughout the year. Of course, I've got the Let's Talk Supercars series running still. Of course, Newcastle is this weekend, the start of the Supercars and Super 2, Super 3 series. So stay tuned for a preview video for that, episode which will be coming in the next few days, hopefully Wednesday or Thursday, just in time for the race. And then after that, I'll be doing a review / debrief of both categories. If you want to see more Formula 1, let me know, and I'll do stuff similar to my Let's Talk Supercar series, but as Formula 1. So if you did enjoy this, let me know. If there's any suggestions, also let me know. I'm open to criticism, opinions, advice, all that jazz. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for listening and have a good one. Peace.